This is Lanterns on TV Podcast Industries. We're back with a brand new show, DC's Lanterns on HBO Max. We're talking about episode 1, Pilot.
Am I dead?
What?
You're wearing my ring.
Is that supposed to be funny?
Hey, did I do something to piss you off? Because if I did, I'm sorry.
You, Hal Jordan. Sorry.
That's right.
I must have a concussion.
Wait a sec. Let's start at the beginning. Who are you and why are you wearing my ring?
I'm John Stewart, your trainee.
Lanterns don't have trainees from their own sector.
They do now.
Welcome, fellow Lanterns. This is TV Podcast Industries. We're back with the first episode of Lanterns on HBO Max. The episode titled Pilot. I am one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, yes, fellow Lanterns. I was hoping to say Gothamites because it is in the DC universe, but I'll go with either. So yes, welcome fellow Lanterns and welcome back fellow Gothamites if you're joining us. I am one of your other hosts, John. I kept thinking this should be called Pilots because you've got Hal Jordan and John Stewart. Not that John Stewart, another John
a different
Stewart.
John Stewart.
Yes, exactly. So, really great to be back in the DC universe.
It is. It's been quite a while, and this is our first show, as far as I'm aware, that doesn't contain any connections to Batman.
No, none whatsoever. Our last outing was Penguin, really.
Yeah.
A great TV show, and at least for me, straight off the bat, I probably say this all the time, and with the exception of anything to do with Doctor Strange or the magical world of Marvel, but yeah, for me, Lanterns would really be low on my radar of comics. Sure, if they were in adjacent comics or they were involved in big crossovers or whatever, then yes, I would obviously have some knowledge of the Lanterns, but I'm really intrigued by this because other than watching kind of a little sort of warmer in the form of one of the cartoons for the Green Lanterns that has John Stewart in it.
That's right, one of the 2022 animated movie.
The animated movie. Yeah. Then that was a nice little primer, nice little warmer for this. I'm kind of an open book, really. So, really pleased to be getting into this show.
Absolutely. And if you're joining us for the first time on TV Podcast Industry, we have been podcasting about TV for 11 years now. And it started with our Gotham podcast on the DC podcast, effectively. We have been podcasting about loads of other shows. John mentioned some of the Marvel shows that we've been podcasting. But generally, we've kind of stuck around on the DC side, around the Batman universe with Pennyworth and with all the movies that featured Batman and were connected to Batman. We haven't done much in the new James Gunn, Peter Safran universe of the DC. So this will be our first kind of dip into that. And I'm kind of excited about it. There are reasons which we'll talk about as we get more in depth into this as to why this is the show that we picked to have a look at. Some connections to other shows that we've covered in the past. But very excited from the beginning. I think we saw the first 5 minutes of the episode a couple of weeks ago and went, right, this is definitely one that we want to put everything aside and try and cover every week as it comes out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, spoilers for my thoughts, but I really enjoyed this first episode of Lanterns and really wanted to go straight into episode 2, but I'm glad that they are keeping it purely episodic. This it reminds me of sort of watching X-Files or different shows in the sort of late 90s. I mean, even Star Trek Next Generation, where you'd be left with, what's going to happen next week? Really intriguing, sort of excited. It was always the buzz in school or at uni.
Absolutely.
And again here, and then work. I do not want to say the water cooler moment. Never had one of those, thank God.
We were smokers, so it was the smoking room moment.
Well, that's true. But for sure, I just like the fact that it just keeps the conversation going. across the week, and I really enjoy that. I think it's a really social way of having TV, so yeah. I kind of liked the whole sort of cliffhanger at the end, getting me absolutely excited for the next episode. So that's my spoilers on that.
Absolutely. And obviously, we do need to remind everybody this is our first episode of a brand new show. So if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com. You can also leave voicemails over there. You can contact us through any of our channels over there. You can subscribe to any podcast player of your choice through the website at TV Podcast Industries. This will be going out in our former Gotham feed because that's been quite silent for quite a while. So you'll get it on there, but you'll also get it on our main feed, in our TV Podcast Industries feed, where we've podcasted for over 1,000 episodes of great TV and some fantastic movies over the course of the last 11 years. We also want to hear your thoughts on each episode of the show as they come out. We're hoping to record every Tuesday night, so you'll have a bit of time to get your feedback in before we start recording. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Hop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, or join us on our Discord, the details of which are in the show notes right here, or just search for TV Podcast Industries.
Yes, absolutely. I think without any further ado, I should also announce, fellow Lanterns, that we will be having a pub quiz for this series of Lanterns. In fact, dare I say it, it will be the Redneck Rushville bar quiz. Has to be after seeing the shenanigans in Rushville with Hal Jordan. So yes, we'll have a Redneck bar quiz as well. So as we usually do, it will be one question per episode. Send your answers into feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. At the end of the season, all 8 answers, and send them in, and they will be drawn in our wrap-up episode of Lanterns Season 1. Yeah. And you'll be in a chance to win some goodies if you are drawn from the tombola.
That's it. Well done, John. That's very impressive. Off the bat. Well remembered. Good stuff. So let's get into our chat all about the first episode of Lanterns Season 1, Episode 1, Pilot.
Yes. Derek, who gave us what, where, when, and how?
Well, the showrunners for the show, there's 3 of them here. We've got Chris Mundy, Damon Lindelof, and Tom King. Chris Mundy was an executive producer on True Detective and Ozark, two of our favourite drama shows out there. Tom King, very well known as a comic book writer from DC, so bringing on board a comic book writer for a comic book TV show, can't go wrong, can you? Nope. Damon Lindelof, probably the most well-known name in there. He has an amazing track record for shows beginning with L. He was involved in the incredible Lost and the phenomenal Leftovers, another 2 of the greatest TV shows of all time. Last time he was working in the DC universe, he led the brilliant writer's room for Watchmen. Still one of our top 5 shows, really, isn't it? So here's hoping that Lanterns will be as good as that one.
Absolutely, yeah. Always a big Damon Lindelof fan, to be honest. Yeah. I think we interviewed him at New York Comic Con. Was it Damon Lindelof, or was it?
No, it wasn't Damon Lindelof. I'm trying to rack my brains. I can't remember then who it was, but it was the showrunner of Krypton, and very well known from lots and lots of comic book properties. And his name just escapes my mind.
Absolutely.
At the moment, I'll have to look it up if we have a second, and we might come back on it next week.
Excellent. And who directed this episode?
Well, they wrote this episode. The showrunners, all 3 of them, involved in the writing for the first episode, and the episode was directed by James Hawes. He's recently been hiding away on Apple TV directing episodes of Slow Horses, but he has done loads of shows that we absolutely love, like Black Mirror, and he directed 5 episodes in season 1 and 2 of Penny Dreadful, which we covered right here on this podcast.
Certainly did, on our Dreadful podcast.
That's right. James Hawes, really, really well experienced director. He's done loads of shows, but he's on board here for these first 2 episodes of Lanterns.
Yes. Excellent.
So, John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the first episode of Lanterns Pilot?
Sure. In 1996, the young John Stewart and his brothers watch on as Earth's only ever Green Lantern reveals his identity to the world. He is Hal Jordan, and he was chosen as the successor of Green Lantern Abin Sur after he crashed his ship and died. He just had to answer one question: is he afraid? When John's father arrives home, he asks the same question of his son while shooting an apple off his head. 20 years later, in 2016, John Stewart is now supposedly being mentored by Hal Jordan to become the next Green Lantern. When John received a cryptic message from a holographic projection of a kinda younger Hal from inside the Green Lantern ring, it sends the duo to Rushville, Nebraska. With little support from Hal, John helps the town sheriff, Kerry Kane, to capture a suspect involved in a mass shooting at their town's football stadium. But Sheriff Kane forbids Hal from joining the investigation, believing the case has no extraterrestrial connection. Trying to get close to the suspect, Hal gets himself arrested for a bar fight, but the sheriff keeps him separated in jail until he is bailed out by lawyer and Kerry's husband, Billy Macon. In return, Hal agrees to meet Kerry's father-in-law, William Macon Sr., who arranges for Hal to interrogate the suspect, Wayland Sanders. During the interrogation, Hal exposes Sanders as an alien. In retaliation, the alien detonates a bomb in his body, but Hal uses the last of his ring's power to contain the damage. 10 years further on, in 2026, John Stewart returns to Rushville, where the Macon farm has fallen to rack and ruin. Meanwhile, back at the town's football stadium, Sheriff Kerry Kane shows him a dead and frozen Hal Jordan. And John notices something on his hand. He's missing his Green Lantern ring.
The big mystery set up for the season, really, here, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, loved the patter of this. I loved the little 1996 to 2026. Sorry, through 2016. 2016 being the kind of the main portion of this episode. But yeah, really where you get to meet Hal Jordan, John Stewart, and certainly some of the key players at this moment in Rushville, Nebraska. So yeah, really kind of enjoyed the patter of this opening episode.
Yeah, and you just get the suspicion when you get to the end and it skips to 2026, you go, hang on a second, I'm going to see any of those characters again. Have I just taken all my notes for nothing? I'm sure we'll see all of them again in some form over the next couple of weeks. I love the idea that we could be spreading it over those 3 time periods and more as well. There's a couple other time periods mentioned as well in the first episode. But what we're going to do, we're going to talk about our top 3 moments from the episode. We always have a little twist on our top 3 points. We're calling them this time, instead of power points, we're calling them power ring points for the episode. So let's get on with our first power ring point, number 1.
Is that a golf swing?
It does sound like it at the end, doesn't it? No, that's the ring of power, or the power ring that Hal uses as he conjures the bottle opener. So that's the bottle opener arriving right at the end, but it does sound like a golf swing.
It's not the lighter.
No. No, that wouldn't have made the same or a similar noise. So I'm going to use that as our indication of the points,
Grant.
John.
Excellent.
Yeah. So we're going to start off with our setup for the episode, 1996 to 2016. So the initial opening of the episode, again, this was released a couple of weeks ago as the kind of teaser or taster for the episode. And the setting of it really is in John Stewart's home with his brothers while they're sitting down in front of the TV to a 60 minutes interview with Hal Jordan announcing to the world who he is. We hear a little bit of the backstory about who he is, where he comes from, what he is. But there seems to be something kind of mysterious going on in the background with John Stewart's family, doesn't there? The kids seem to be really, really nervous about, is it watching this program or is it watching TV at all when their dad's not at home?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's it. The kind of, the interview with Hal Jordan is kind of, it's kind of par for the course almost. It's asking, he was asked, are you afraid? And he says, no, because anyone that's seen their father die no longer has anything to be afraid, or any of their parents, do you know? And but you see his brothers being all really nervous, and then that his father arrives back home.
Yeah.
So you think immediately that this is almost an abusive relationship here, because they're all on edge. You know, his brothers are telling him, you know, turn off the TV.
Yeah. One brother even turned it off before it gets to, you know, the big reveal of who Hal Jordan is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really intriguing because, I mean, ultimately then we get this William Tell moment where his dad takes him out, puts an apple on his head, and fires his hand revolver at the apple. Takes it off and says, "Are you afraid?" And he's like, "No." His dad, as such, isn't really angry. He's just very matter of fact about the whole thing. And once he's done, he goes, "Well, let's go get a burger." So it's a really weird setup. You're like going, okay, he's not being violent towards them, but at the same time, he's literally just pointed a gun at his son and fired his apple. So he must be very sure of his ability to do that. I do like the fact that behind the young John Stewart, there are loads of bullet holes that look like, you know, the height indicators that people draw on the door frames where, as their kids grow up, and you're like, you know, this is the kid at 4 foot, 4'1", 4'2", whatever. So as he's gotten older, so this is something that has been happening for quite a while. So
Absolutely.
Actually, the young John Stewart would be quite okay with this to some degree, or experienced, definitely. So
like,
it's a really interesting kind of opener, because I was like, what is going on here?
Absolutely. It was something that, like, you pointed that out when we were watching the episode, the bullet holes behind kind of growing with him. And, you know, again, watching it again after you pointed it out, it is interesting that it does seem to be bullet holes with John's growth, because they're going along with John. The other two kids one's a bit taller and one's a bit shorter than him. So it does seem to be John is the one that's taken outside. So again, we don't know a huge amount about it. This is the only scene we see in the past. And then when we do jump to 2016, we see that John is now in training beside Hal. So he's standing beside Hal as his apprentice almost. So it feels like this is setting up the fact that John is being trained by his father to become a Green Lantern. That's why he's asking that question of, "Are you afraid?" to John. Exactly the same question that Hal Jordan was asked. And the only question he was asked to get the Green Lantern ring. So there's some intrigue there that hopefully we'll see a bit more of in the future as to why his father knows the question to ask, as to why he's prepping John for this role in 2016 and onwards, you know?
Well, and the interesting thing is then when it cuts to 2016, where you suddenly have the older John Stewart getting picked up by Hal as now his trainee, as his, you know, apprentice, his sidekick, however you want to describe it. You do have a lovely moment where, you know, he's like, "I'm late." And he's like, "Are you angry?" And he's like, "No, sir." Are you a little perturbed? And he's like, "No, sir." And he says, "The more you say, sir, the more it sounds like F you."
Exactly.
So immediately, like, this is a great adult show for sure. But interestingly, as they're driving along, you know, you have a bit of tension between these two. It's like 2 months and I still haven't worn the ring. And so he takes off the ring, puts it on the counter, and sort of barrel rolls out the car as the car heads over and down the ravine, where John Stewart is having to grab the ring and, you know, bring forth some kind of protection.
Yes.
And he does that, but he does call his dad.
Afterwards, yes.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
And this is where you see that he is, you know, so his dad is still around and he's like, "I've just survived a car crash. He tried to kill me." And, you know, he's like, his dad is just saying, he's just trying to put you on tilt.
Yeah.
You need to be cool. You know, stay the course and the job is yours. So again, it's like, back even in 1996, his dad saw an opportunity of him maybe to train him with the characteristics as for being chosen as a Green Lantern. But equally, at the moment, maybe technically he's not. He is, yes, being trained. Yes, certainly in that extreme situation, he wore the green ring and he used it. It is seemingly that he has been chosen as a successor by the Green Lanterns, if I understand that.
The Guardians of the Universe,
Yeah, the Guardians
I think, are the people that choose the lanterns.
Yeah.
He says it, and again, we have to kind of take it at face value for the moment because of these time shifts. We'll probably see a bit more of that in the future. But that's a really good point that you bring up, because the interview on TV is a live interview on 60 Minutes where Hal is talking about his experience and saying he was only asked one question. So likely that John's father had access to the debrief that happened at some point with Hal before then, because he was Green Lantern for about 10 years, it says, in that initial conversation.
Yes.
So he probably knows the background to it and has been preparing his kid to grow up to become the Green Lantern in case the opportunity comes up in the future. But one other quick thing that I want to bring up that you kind of mentioned there, when Hal arrives and he keeps pressuring John to find out whether he's angry or not. I thought that was quite interesting given the show itself and given the lanterns and all of them being connected to moods. The angry mood is the yellow ring, which are traditionally the yellow lanterns, which are foes of the Green Lanterns.
Like Sinestro.
So it's
Sinestra?
all, again, very, very basic knowledge of this, and don't correct if you want to send in your thoughts. Of course, our wonderful listeners, please help us out with piecing these things together.
Indeed.
But I just found it interesting that Hal was pushing John towards being angry at him. You know, he tells him, you know, I'd be pretty angry if I left you on your own for 2 weeks without any information at all as to where I was. Turned up a little hungover this morning because I prevented a civil war. And John's asking him, how did you do that? And he goes, oh, the usual. Well, you know how it is. A little diplomacy, a little punching. And John's kind of going, I don't know how it is because you haven't told me anything about that at all. We're off to a flying lesson, which is probably the first real lesson you're about to give him. And the flying lesson turns out to be him in a car flying off the edge of a cliff and having to work out a way out of the car. You know?
I love the fact that he's like, there's a taco stand 3 kilometers up the road. I'll see you there.
Yeah.
And he just barrel rolls out. And I mean, you're right. I think actually all the way through this, despite all his best efforts, you see Hal trying to rile up John Stewart. And actually John Stewart is relatively chilled around him. Like there's moments where no, it's not that it's not that he loses his cool. Yeah, no, he is. But that's what I mean. He's quite deliberate about how he responds to Hal Jordan, because he understands the difference of this you know, deliberate intention to rile him up. The time where he needs his father to calm down, and it might be the reason why he calls him, is where he survives the car crash. You know, and he shouts it at Hal's face, you know, you tried to kill me. Yeah. What are you doing? John Stewart certainly is very measured with Hal Jordan. I think, you know, there are moments where, I think it's in Rushville where he's asked, do you respect him? Do you respect someone like that who literally just got handed something? No training like you're having to go through. None of this. It just falls in his lap, and look at him. Look how he treats you. Do you respect someone like that? And he's like, well, yeah, I do actually. Yeah. You know, he's got a resolve about him. And so I do think it's kind of an interesting relationship. It's almost, it's that apprenticeship where you might not actually like your boss, but you realize you're going to get a good job out of it and you're going to get trained in the skills, except that the thing is, the training that John Stewart is getting is with a very grumpy Hal, as we see in this opening sequence. And this becomes very apparent with John Stewart, because you get Hal Jordan's backup consciousness suddenly materializing on the road as John Stewart's trying to get to the taco stand. And I do like the fact that holographic Hal Jordan is like going, but wouldn't I have trained you on this? And he's like, it's like, well, no, you haven't. Oh, and what do you mean you don't know this? Wouldn't I have trained you on this or told you about that and all that? And I kind of like that. And then it's like, well, when were you last backed up? He says, well, we're supposed to do it once a week, but this is from 10 years ago.
Exactly, it's from 1996.
You kind of like going, you know, this is, you can imagine this.
Sorry, that's my 10 years, yes.
You can really imagine this sort of testing John Stewart, who, looking back, has been trained since he was a young kid with his dad shooting apples off his head. And here's someone who's like, he's just suddenly realizes he's supposed to sort of keep his record once a week and hasn't done it for the last 10 years. Yeah. But he comes with then this message.
Yeah. But it's so interesting seeing this other version of Hal. And I think that version would have got on really well with John Stewart. Yeah. He would have trained him well. He would have set everything up, Again, interesting that you point out, and don't want to miss it in the shuffle of everything else that's going on in the episode. John says to him he should have been backed up every week in case anything happens, because again, the premise of the whole Green Lantern story is the initial Lantern who for that sector came to Earth, handed over his ring to an Earthling who's not supposed to be the Green Lantern in the sector, but he was chosen, Hal Jordan, and then eventually Hal Jordan will die and it will pass on to somebody else. That's baked into the whole story of the Green Lanterns. And this older version of John Stewart knew that. This current version of John Stewart in 2016 thinks he's going to live forever and says there's no chance you're taking over from me. I'm not dying anytime soon, basically. That's why he's not training John Stewart. So that's really interesting. And also, another little touch there from Hal, this older version of Hal who appears as the hologram, as brilliantly named by John. He says it's not normal for a Lantern to be training a trainee from their own sector either. So you don't train the person that's coming up to take on the job from you in the future. You maybe train someone from another sector to take on the Lantern position over there, but you don't do that. And John here has been chosen to take over from him. Effectively.
I like the interaction here where it's like holographic Hal is, well, how do I know I can trust you? Mm-hmm. And he's like, do we get along? And you just have John Stewart going, we get on great. Yeah. And you just, the face on it is really good. Yes. But with that, he does get this message. There's hail in Rushville, Nebraska, which back at the taco stand, despite being, swamped by fans in there, and you have, I like the fact that you've got a little moment where Hal approaches, the tight suit that would be reminiscent of the comics, and why he's not in some very tight fitting, very revealing leotard. Well, I know he's an older Hal Jordan, but he says, well, I completely get him with the tie analogy. He says, when you're young, you need to prove yourself. Yeah. So you put on a tie because you think people will respect you more. You'll dress up smart. As you get older, as you get wiser, you realize that ties just don't prove anything. Yeah. And that's all in response to being asked by the owner of the stand, how come you don't wear the suit anymore? Mm-hmm. Why don't you wear the leotard, the green leotard?
Like this is a disenchanted and a kind of disenfranchised version of Hal Jordan that we're seeing here. His explanation that he's got here doesn't really ring true. No. He can create whatever type of suit he wants to create. That's the That's the ability he has with the Lantern. You can create anything within your imagination. Yeah. So he could just create a suit that fit better, that he liked wearing, right?
No, agreed.
But he's saying, I don't need to prove myself because everywhere I go, everybody who knows who I am, and I'm kind of tired of doing it almost, is the feeling. But I do wonder, just a little bit of speculation again on why John Stewart is being trained by Hal, or put in the position to be trained by Hal. And I do wonder if the armed forces, whoever it is that his father works for, are concerned about Hal Jordan, the untrained person with no abilities other than being someone that doesn't have fear and was a former test pilot, getting the abilities of the Green Lantern, and they're trying to put John Stewart in the position to take over from him before they take out Hal Jordan. And,
that's an interesting point.
And John, a person trained in the army. What did they say? He's a former Air Force pilot, or is he?
Certainly his father was in Marines.
So he's military.
Yeah, he's definitely military.
But I'm wondering whether they were trying to push John Stewart as a controlled person in the position of Hal Jordan, who isn't controllable, as we see throughout this episode as well.
Absolutely. So. And there's actually quite a lot of those kind of touch points in this episode, like in the court scene in Rushville, where it's like, what agency are you from?
Yeah.
And you have it with Sheriff Kerry Kane, where she's like, well, this is my jurisdiction.
Yeah.
You only deal with extraterrestrials.
Yes.
And this, by definition, is a terrestrial incident. It's happening here on Earth. So
and that's kind of it, isn't it? Like, he doesn't represent any agency. He is the agency responsible for dealing with any extraterrestrial threats. It looks like he's gotten the jurisdiction to deal with anything as long as it is extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
I love that conversation with Kerry Kane where she's saying, look, everybody knows who you are, and the minute you're involved in this, if you go in front of a TV camera, then this becomes aliens in town. And I know all these people, this will ruin their lives or change their lives forever. Can I just get on with my investigation? And then if it does turn out to be in your jurisdiction, then you can have it, but it's not going to. This is just a simple situation.
No, agreed. I mean, I think in amongst kind of a lot of this, like at the taco stand as well, you know, he does get told this message from the 10-year-old Hal from John Stewart, and he's like, pay the check, and he just takes off flying. And I have to say, I love this little montage. I think this is what is really kind of great about this episode. You have him taking off, and then you just have this montage of John Stewart having to get in a car, go to the airport, get the security on the flight, back in the car, and it's like 6 hours plus to get to Rushville, where he's then, you know, on a football field being treated sort of on the sidelines in the stand with the other Scheisser head, effectively, as Kerry Kane says. I love that little moment of her conversation with her deputy, and it just...
It's like, not another one of them.
Not another one, you know, really like... that they're still processing the scene, but I love then that you have them both off the field of play, sort of benched, if you were, in the stand by the sheriff of Rushville, because you don't have jurisdiction here. And, you know, I kind of like then how that sets up how this plays out, to be honest, on the football field, because I do think it's really good. I just like the touches that come through this of actually sort of the slightly younger, more impulsive John Stewart, but maybe the more nuanced, actually the wiser Hal Jordan, who realizes a lot of the same stuff that actually Sheriff Kerry Kane also realizes. And this notion that just because other people aren't Green Lanterns doesn't mean to say that they're not good enforcers. And I loved how that played out just here in this stadium.
It's a great lesson to learn, isn't it? That the people around you can teach you a lot just by their experience. And there's definitely a reason why the Green Lantern who flew here from another state has sat there for 6 hours respecting what the law enforcement officer was saying. And John takes it that he's just not respecting the chain of command, so he needs to tell her all the information that he has in his head, and he does. And it turns out, well, she knew all that all along, and now he's royally screwed up. You know, so it's a good lesson to learn. I really like that. We'll move on to that a bit more in our next major point, because that is the next major point of the episode. But I just want to talk about a couple of little things on the setup as well. Last couple of things on the setup, because one of the big things for the show is going to be how they use the ring. And I'll say for myself, I'm a big comic book fan, big fan of the animated shows, of all comic book types. And one of the things that's always stood out to me about the Green Lantern stuff is the character himself. His power is that he has the power to use his lantern to create anything. And I always find I butt up against when they put him in a cartoon, and most of the time it's just a green light, and it's
or
like
a hammer.
Yeah, but it's just very rare that the animators. Maybe it's very complex, of course, because you can do anything, but it's very rare the animators in the past have chosen something really interesting to do with the character, and it feels like you've got the entire imagination of everything available to you, and they tend to just have the Green Lantern holding people back with a big green ball. Yeah. So,
or a hammer to attack.
Or a hammer, or
a big revolver.
Yeah. But again, there's a couple of things, but it seems to go into those, 2 or 3 options. But he can do absolutely anything. So it felt like in the show here, we've only seen him use it a few times. We hear mention that John Stewart used it to create a bubble wrap for himself to stop himself from being hurt. We see him using the big green bull to stop an explosion later on. But interestingly, we also see him creating a $20 bill to use on a jukebox, which is very funny and called out immediately by John Stewart. Hang on a second, you can't create legal tender using it. I can create whatever I want to, which is really good. And also a bit of a chat up moment with, even though he knows that the sheriff is married, a bit of a chat up moment with Sheriff Kane when he arrives at the beer, gives it to her, and then goes and creates the bottle opener with it.
But I think as well, the context of that from at the football stadium where you have John Stewart says, I think she hates your guts. Mm-hmm. And he's like, Hal Jordan's like, yeah, but it's the way she hates them. Like he really likes it. And so then you have this bottle opener moment where even when he gets rid of the bottle opener, he blows it as though it's dust. Absolutely. And it's like, she's like, how
cool am I? Yeah. He's so good. He's so good. Huge compliments for Kyle Chandler here playing Hal Jordan. I've loved him for years from back in the day when he was in Early Edition, which was a TV show that is out of most people's memory by this stage. But also he's in Friday Night Lights is probably where he's most well known, but he's been in loads and loads of projects. But you see the real charming version of the character in the, I suppose, the flashback version of Hal Jordan. You see this real grumpy, older version of him here. And he just plays all of those different versions of himself really, really good. And up against him with Aaron Pierre as John Stewart, where they work so well, the two of them together.
And Kelly MacDonald here is really, really good. I just loved her perspective. I loved just how she butted up against Hal Jordan and sort of questioned why John Stewart was with him, in a sense. I just thought it was really, really good.
Great.
The use of the ring so far is good. And I know it's a green ball, but actually it's just a dampening field.
Well, yes.
In a sense.
Yeah, I was just trying to say that they do in the animated movies, they've always used kind of a green ball, a green glowing thing to stop it. And it's kind of, okay, use a bit more of your imagination, guys. You can do anything with this ring. So hopefully we'll see loads of interesting stuff throughout the series. Or will we? Anything else about the setup, John, for the episode that we should talk about in that first ring point, our first power ring point? I forgot already.
I think the main one is we do have a really awkward situation, which is also hilarious. And again, I'm just so glad they did this. And it's done in a good way, where in the bar you have Hal Jordan wanting to get arrested. He's angling for a fight. He's designing it and setting it up by putting on the same tune so it annoys the locals. And you have this lady at the bar, you kind of questioning her motives because she's just, she's asking a few, she's just asking a lot of questions of John Stewart. Well, how'd you get to become a space cop?
He's a space cop. You must be a space cop.
She's also kind of there next to them both, whilst you really get Hal Jordan's backstory here. You hear about him being handed this title of Green Lantern for this sector by Abin Sur. I think it's Sector 2814.
That's it.
After he's kind of crashed, and because he was a fighter pilot, he kind of understood the bearing and the speed where he was taken to, which was just outside of this town in Rushville in Nebraska. So
that's the reason why we're here. It's 20 miles outside the town, roughly. So
you have this, a lot of information being done right in earshot of her. And he goes over then to sort of really get his plan into action to get arrested, so he can sort of spend time in the jailhouse with the redneck, but from the football stadium. So they have their conversation, and it finishes with, "My name's John," and she goes, "Well, will you escort me to my car?" And they have this one night stand out in the car. Where he does a great thing with the ring, where he uses it as a lighter, which I never thought I would see. So again, another good use of the ring. But effectively later, at the McCann family farm or ranch, he's helping Kelly's Sheriff Kerry Kane's son to sort of throw his American football. And then he gets introduced to the kid's granny, who is this same lady. So we do have a GILF.
Yes.
I guess.
or a GHLF, I guess, because I wouldn't be that interested, but yes. But yes, Zoe Macon. I know it's really tempting when we see that word written down, John, to pronounce it in a kind of a French or Canadian way, but they are proper down home American.
I keep saying Macon.
It's the Macons, so really good, really interesting one. I do wonder, I know the tropes would say that when he returns to town 10 years later, John now has a son by the granny here in the house, but I doubt that's going to happen. I do wonder about that, and will that play into the story about the fact that he slept with the mother-in-law of the sheriff, because there is a moment with William Senior where we realize that he knows about the fact that they slept together. So it's going to be an interesting one, and what an interesting moment as well. So
quickly, I do, William Macon's he does say there's nothing better than eating off another man's grill to John Stewart.
Yes,
in terms of letting him know that he knows that he has had a one-night stand with his wife.
Yeah.
And I do like Hal's response where he's like, what was all that about? Did you sleep with that? And he's like, yeah, I kind of. And then he's like, I definitely slept with his wife. And he's like, Jesus, I'm impressed. We've only been here 24 hours.
How do you do that? Going into a town that you don't know anybody in, they even point out a small town, everybody here is connected. You don't go into town, sleep with somebody you don't know. And then, especially if you're going to be investigating the town of population 50, probably. So, maybe a bit more than that. But, really, really bad idea. So that probably
take
will
them whilst
have,
you can in those kind of situations.
It probably will have some implications that'll be lasting.
Exactly.
Let's get on to our second power ring point number 2.
Four.
I might take off that last little bit so it doesn't sound so much like a golf ball being struck, because it probably was. It was probably the Foley people designing that sound, going, that sounds like the appearance of something out of nowhere, a golf ball being struck. Anyway, our second point is the alien invasion, because that is the body of the episode. So the big central piece of the episode is they go to Macon Ranch, John Stewart and Hal Jordan, kind of under the premise of chatting with the person that bailed Hal out. But there's some big discussions going on here that we really should be focusing on, I think, from this episode. Again, we're only seeing this episode just like everybody else. We're not looking at previews, so we don't know what's happening in the series itself. But we know that the people that are on the ranch seem kind of militia-like. They're all in training with their weapons. I don't think this is what happens on every single ranch in America. So it seems like they are focused on something here, and the conversation with William Macon Sr. Seems to indicate that they have a similar perspective, or at least they think they do, to Hal Jordan about the presence of aliens on Earth. Played wonderfully here by Garrett Dillahunt from Fear the Walking Dead, one of the best characters on that show, who chose to go out of there as quickly as he could. Well, before it went to really bad. How about that? He was there for about 5 seasons.
Absolutely.
But he's great here as the kind of leader of this group. But interestingly, he says that the ranch that's there, he's the caretaker of the ranch, not the owner of the ranch.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is really interesting. It was really intriguing as they drive up to the Macon family ranch. It's heavily fortified, lots of guns around. This kind of militia in training type of thing. So immediately it's just like, certainly in maybe the current circumstances, you're like going, okay, what's going on here? I mean, I do like that you have William Macon kind of saying, I'm not a wackadoo isolationist, as he quotes. This isn't about having a beef with the feds. It is about the aliens. And he gives that sort of moment where he says, no matter which side you're on, colonizing is ugly from any angle,
Uh-huh.
but particularly bleak if you're the one being colonized. So making huge reference here to the indigenous American population, to the white colonialism of the USA, of Spain, of Britain, of France, in North America, and but this is about aliens. We've suddenly become, it's that classic, we're the bugs on their shoes. Exactly. We're the outpost. And actually, you've heard this from Hal earlier in, this is like some kind of backwater of the galaxy.
Earth,
that has no real interest much for the Guardians in some respects, or that's what keeps being sort of mentioned,
or for anybody. Like it's for any alien species. As he says in response to this conversation with William Macon Sr., he's saying to him, it's been out in the galaxy, it's a pretty peaceful place. There's not a huge amount of attacks. William's kind of going, but what if there is? What if there is going to be an attack here? We need to kind of do something about it. So it seems like they're setting up some kind of force to stop any potential attack from happening.
And as he says, well, then why do we need space cops?
Exactly.
He also says, I think our interests align because he believes that this redneck that was caught at the football stadium is also an alien. And of course he can't say anything because he has this NDA, and it comes out in a really nice little moment where, he's telling Hal, well, Kerry will grant you access to the suspect now that our interests are aligned. And he says, but what are your interests? Because I don't know. And, it's like he said to his son, to Billy McCon, it's like, normally when people give me lots of money, such as the 200,000 bail, they're normally the bad guys. So, I mean, maybe this is just pure flagging that these are bad guys.
Maybe, yeah.
And even you have, as they arrive at the ranch, and you have moments with Kerry, Kane, where, you've got, well, my father-in-law has paper on you, and he's not a man that you want to owe. I do like Hal's sort of bite back to her where he goes, that sounds like a woman in debt.
Yes.
Such great. That's a really nice bit of writing for me. Loved that.
I even like when she says to him, we're at the moment where you can turn back. Every moment from this moment onwards is the point where you're stuck here. You're in the situation. Yeah. But from now on, or from here back, you can turn around and go and leave. But you will question why you ever came here. And we'll see later on, maybe he does.
So this is all really massively intriguing. Ultimately, seemingly aligned with Hal Jordan, but also really murky with the NDA. Even whilst they seem to be enjoying one another's company at this barbecue. But again, there's also, a bit of ownership here with the fact that, because everyone knows everyone. So Hal has actually, before he's even gone to this barbecue, has interacted with the daughter-in-law, the son, who's the lawyer, and has been bailed out by this guy who has a lot of guns on his ranch and absolutely believes in aliens and that there are issues for this area that Hal also believes in and is the reason why it's there. So this is, I really enjoyed this. And it's like I was saying before, where he tells the story of how he was brought around 20 miles away from Rushville by Abin Sur when he was made his replacement as the Green Lantern for this sector. And that's why he's always had this holographic reminder, effectively, there's Hale in Rushville, Nebraska.
Well, yes, it's like a monitor in case someone something happens here, because as he says, it's a really good location for an alien spacecraft to crash, because nobody noticed it when it crashed back then. So they may not notice another one. So maybe it'd be a good place for an invasion to begin as well. So right, so let's talk a little bit about that itself, the alien invasion. So, as you say, Hal's granted access to talk to this alien known as Wayland, who's in there. He's given the opportunity to have a discussion or an interrogation with him, but is told he can't use any of his powers on him. He's not allowed to punch him. He's not allowed to hit him. He's not allowed to do anything to him. And he says, well, I'll make him confess in just 5 minutes, basically. We hear a little bit of the story as well, and I'm not really too sure whether I get exactly what happened. It sounds like there was a football match going on. Some rival teams were involved. The local town team were there. Some of the rivals went on to the pitch and all died in a shootout. But was it at the hands of this guy Wayland? Did he shoot the people that were there or not? I'm not sure whether that was the case.
Like, John Stewart's asked to kind of describe the scene by Hal, what happens. And so you have this kind of, it's almost like forensic procedural that John Stewart gets into.
It's very cool. Yeah.
Where he says, it looks like Rushville, who were playing against Kimball, a rival team from 2 hours away. They scored a late winner. The crowd swelled and went onto the pitch, and members of Kimball's away or travelling fans also went on.
Yeah.
And that this then ended up with a number of them being shot. And the redneck here changed out his Kimball t-shirt. And I'm suspecting it's coming from the Macon militia in some respect. If he believes that man is an alien, maybe he also knew something around why he killed these people.
Maybe.
So that,
maybe.
Because they were also aliens.
Yeah.
Because what we do find out here is that there's about 14 alien species that can't be identified as alien from medical tests on Earth.
Yeah.
And so this Wayland looks absolutely like a regular human being.
Interesting.
He certainly starts out like that. Kerry Kane certainly thinks Hal has got the wrong end of the stick here. She,
But it's a great little moment that they point out that nobody in town knows who any of the dead people are.
Yes.
I
think Hal says it's very mellow for a mass shooting, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's only members of the supporters for the other team, but even the other team don't know who the people were.
Exactly.
The people that came out to support them at this town 2 hours away, which is just really interesting. So Hal sets about interrogating him the way he does to find out whether he's an alien or not, because he's not really that interested in the shooting.
Can I just say about the initial setup?
Oh, sure, yeah, of course.
Because I do like the fact that, classic softening him up in terms of that good cop where he offers him a coffee. But he says, I imagine you want to phone home. I get home, but I love that little ET reference right off the bat. And then after that, he starts quizzing him about his love of football, US presidents, Harry Potter, you name it, he's trying to sort of really make the point that, yes, you know a lot about football, but you seemingly are relatively nonchalant around Barack Obama for someone from small town Nebraska.
Absolutely.
Where the president has got some kind of controversy over his passport.
Yeah.
And, well, look, Harry Potter was the boy wizard, so I kind of like how it plays out.
Yeah. And very smart of HBO to mention Harry Potter, their upcoming TV show,
exactly.
of course, on HBO next year. So everybody should know about that character, of course. Yeah, but I like that. That's the point, isn't it? He's finding out that this alien has been able to learn a ton of stuff about the thing that he's supposed to be focused on, because those are the kind of questions you'll be asked about the truck that you came there in, about the town that you're from, about the distance between the two of them, about football. Oh, you're a football fan that traveled to a minor league game or a college football game. Well, then you must know loads about NFL as well as college football games. Tell us all about it, right? So that's really smart. And then the twist is he doesn't know anything about the standard stuff that every average American would know about pop culture. And he gives him a couple of opportunities, exactly as you say. Not only is it about Harry Potter, because not everybody would know about Harry Potter, but people would know about the president. In 2016, they would know a lot more detail than he had some kind of issues with his birth certificate, and they'd have an opinion about it. Not only that,
exactly. I love as well that whilst this is playing out, the opinions are very much coming from Sheriff Kerry Kane in the little booth, who's just in awe about how full of himself Hal is. And she's like, this is where she questions John Stewart about, well, does, he respect him?
Yeah.
And he's like, yes, I do. He's fearless. And she's like, he's not fearless. He's lonely, so I like that there's a lot of opinions coming from the booth that Hal isn't aware of as well.
Absolutely. He's not just lonely. He doesn't care about anybody. If you cared about one person, you would have fear that person would be gone, is the way that she describes it. So that's really interesting. But it turns out he's right, and the conversation is really interesting from this Weyland alien who's basically saying, well, what if I am?
Yeah, I love the fact that he's, as you say, it's like, what if, hypothetically, I am an alien? And he just starts reeling off the hypotheticals.
Yeah,
I love this.
Exactly. Well, I wouldn't be here for peace because, well, you're the peace protectors of the galaxy, so I'd want to avoid being anywhere around you. So there maybe for the opposite of peace, namely war. I'm here for vengeance. Really, really interesting. So did he kill, as you had speculated earlier on, the other people that were on the pitch? Are they aliens and he was out to kill them so that they didn't reveal the plot of the potential war that's coming? Is there a potential war coming even? Just what's the speculation here? But it all turns into a moment of, effectively, he's got a weapon of mass destruction, attached to his bones, attached to his skeleton. He's got a biometric neutron device which he can control with his mind, but can't
Are we
stop
talking
the beeping,
or
though.
Exploding? Because it's close to lunchtime.
Yes, but he can't stop the beeping like it would have in any kind of bomb at all. That's the indication, because beeping's really bad, that he's about to explode. So Hal's able to contain him using the powers of his Green Lantern ring. Just an interesting question that I had after this in the conversation between Weyland and Hal, when Hal's saying, well, if you explode, I'll just continue with the power of my ring. He says, well, you've been here a couple of days. Did you bring your lantern with you to charge up the ring?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what Hal's reaction to that was, whether he does have the lantern. Was he handed over the lantern when he got the power from Abin Sur, or is this the first time he's heard about the lantern? But maybe not, because he's traveling to space, so I'm sure he...
Yeah, and it's over 10 years.
But has he, he basically jumped up from that table at the opening of the episode, flew across state lines to get here because of the warning that he got, didn't bring anything with him. So
yeah, but it's 20 years, in fact.
Yeah, but I mean, did he arrive there without the lantern to power himself up?
Maybe.
So if anything had gone really badly here, this could have been the last thing that he is able to do by protecting the town from this explosion that could have wiped out the whole town, is the speculation, at least, that Weyland is saying. So Hal was kind of, what would be the word? He was kind of pretty risky to go to the town in case he needed a bit more power.
I mean,
without his lantern. Yeah.
I suspect it's a good battery life on the charge up, but I don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I don't know if I need to know. I think it's just every so often. Yes, it's a good reminder, because he does need to get the charge up from the lantern.
Yeah, in the same way that you have the setup for Superman can do absolutely anything unless there's kryptonite around. The setup here for the lanterns is they could do absolutely anything in their imagination, but it is powered and does need to be recharged.
Exactly.
So, with the lantern, and Hal didn't bring it with him, which is the interesting part there as well. So yeah, so we will see how that plays out.
Well, in fact, we haven't seen the lantern at all.
We haven't
in this show so far,
and we also didn't hear the oath of the lanterns until it was spoken by Weyland here in a really jokey kind of way,
a wind-up way.
Yeah, exactly. I was saying to John, one of the things that I'm sure Lanterns fans wanted to hear in a TV show and they want to hear in the movie is the oath being spoken by the characters, because it's so central to the characters that they say this oath before doing a massive act. And here it's spoken by the bad guy of the episode in a really disparaging way. And I'm really glad that they chose that as the way to deliver it for the first time, to deliver the Lantern Oath, because it can seem really odd when not in the comic book. When it's in the comic book, you read it whatever way you read it. You read through it, you know what it is the minute it starts. So you can just pass over it. You know what they're going to say, basically.
But that's
Whereas they have to deliver it in a TV show, and choosing to deliver it through Whalen effectively taking the piss out of Hal Jordan worked really well for me.
I think the context of it at the end of his hypothetical statement, in a sense, to Hal Jordan is really good, because, like you say, he's talking about the exact opposite of it. He says, what if I am an alien? What if I am an alien that has studied all the arcane rules of football that captivates everyone on this world more than their deteriorating atmosphere or the hungry of this world? If I've gone to such lengths to hide myself, if I'm hypothetically an alien, it's for a very important and sensitive reason and goal to keep hidden from a galactic organization like yours that's intent on peace, as it concerns the opposite of that.
Yes.
Being war. And it says, with Hal, why are you here? Why else? Vengeance.
Exactly.
And then you have the opposite of that, which is this proposition that the Guardians have, their mission, being recounted to them by this guy who's basically saying, I am the opposite of what you are. Yes. So it is. I think it's just it's just a fresh way of doing it, and it puts it into a more sinister context.
Exactly.
And I think that's really good. Yeah,
exactly. That's kind of the majority of the alien invasion part of this episode. I'm sure that's going to be one of the big things that will play out for the rest of the season. But let's go on to our powering point number 3 for our final big moment.
It's a 3-wood.
So the episode ends in 2026. So our final point is the mystery. John Stewart is called back to the town of Rushville. We see him driving through past the former Macon Ranch. It's fallen to complete rack and ruin, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, one of the things that we were saying as they approached for the barbecue was, what's above the gate?
Yeah.
And I think, we kind of thought it said study the past.
That's absolutely what it says, I'm sure. Yeah.
On the gate.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting if that has any sort of meaning for any of this. But the mystery side of this, even just the atmosphere of, John Stewart driving to Rushville in the snow, going past this desolate sort of gatehouse that had been there previously, as he meets, the sheriff in town. But it feels really atmospheric. It's at night, you have the snow coming down and so on. So I really kind of like this sort of introduction to the present day within this episode.
And the big moment, really. It's back in the same football stand that they were in back in 2016. There's definitely a moment between Sheriff Kane and John Stewart. They haven't seen each other in a while, but they're friends now after what happened back in 2016, definitely, but maybe another couple of moments over the course of the last couple of years. And he's been called because Hal Jordan's body has been found pretty much in the same place he was back in 2016. The only person that knows about it is the caretaker, but he's there with a bullet hole in his head, and the body is dead.
Seemingly frozen. It's covered in snow.
Yeah.
As you say, just the sort of the dried, frozen blood on his head. But importantly, there is no ring on his finger.
Yes.
The Green Lantern ring is not anywhere to be seen here.
And 2 important things about that. Number 1, John Stewart drove into town and wasn't wearing the ring to come in here. He didn't fly in. And secondly, he doesn't have the ring. So the ring didn't go to John Stewart when Hal died, which was what you'd expect. If Hal Jordan is there and he's been killed, you'd expect his Green Lantern ring to disappear off to the next person chosen, which was supposed to be John Stewart. So why didn't it? Is this Hal Jordan's actual body? Is it an alien posing as the human Hal Jordan to say he's under threat in 2026? Maybe it's that. Maybe that's the mystery.
Possibly.
I don't know. Is that the final time Kyle Chandler's going to be appearing in the show and Hal Jordan won't be in the show at all?
Maybe. Will he be there as the hologram, or as you've written down, the halogram?
I wrote it down because John Stewart said it. I'm not going to take any credit for it.
I missed that. I completely missed that. And maybe because it is such an awful thing.
It's the moment in the bar when John Stewart asked him, so I had the hologram in front of me, and Hal goes, "That's really smart." And he goes, "Thank you." He goes, "Not that smart." So, a nice.
I missed that one.
Yeah. So I wonder, will we just see Kyle Chandler in flashbacks in the setup to this? What happened between when he got the powers in the 80s up until 1996 around this town, because that's where he got the powers.
Is the whole season a flashback? I mean, is it ultimately going to lead to this point? Yeah. We're being shown the end result of something, or at least, till maybe half the way or 3/4 of the way through, and you then have the dealing with the consequences of finding Hal Jordan ringless, frozen and dead in a small town football stadium.
Or, as I say, maybe because I literally just came up with that while we were sitting here, or as I say, will Hal Jordan arrive with his Green Lantern ring from outer space when he was off at another adventure, and he's been around all the time, and this is an alien taking on his form. We know aliens can look like humans. 14 different species can cover themselves up like that. So maybe somebody's saying there's a threat in his life, and we'll just see Kyle Chandler next episode of Hal Jordan. Yes. We don't know, because we have the next episode coming out next week, as the way all good TV shows do.
Exactly.
Is there any notes for the episode? Anything else you want to talk about the episode that we didn't talk about in our major points, John?
Main one for me is because he's getting everywhere at the moment, but we see Carrie Christopher here, who plays the young Noah McCon, and who introduces John Stewart to his granny. That he still hasn't, and he's unaware of the birds and the bees and what's been going on between the two of them. So he's the sheriff's son. This to me is the weapons and the Green Lantern crossover, and indeed the Spider Noir crossover that I didn't know I needed. So it's been a really sort of big year for him, being in these different properties. And I'm sure, unless again he's in flashback or they've given him huge amounts of growth hormone, because right at the end, despite John Stewart having just gone to see the dead body of Hal Jordan, the one bit where you realise he's kept in touch is he is inquiring about Noah, who is now a quarterback on the team, Allstate. Quality. So,
so we'll see an adult version of Noah in this timeline. But I think you're right to point it out, though. Carrie Christopher, again, been in so many big projects. He was the lead kid in Weapons, so he was in most scenes in that movie, and he was in Spider Noir, and we felt when we were covering Spider Noir, which was the last full show that we covered this year, we felt his role had been cut a bit from that show, because he was in about 2 or 3 episodes in a bit of a supporting role, but you felt that there were definitely moments when you could have seen a lot more of the character. So again, I think we will be spending time over 3 different timelines throughout this season. It's a very Damon Lindelof thing to do. It's a very True Detective thing to do as well. It's a very HBO show thing to do. So we probably will see Carrie Christopher. You don't cast a young actor like that who's been in all of these kind of shows and movies in just a role where he's on screen for 10 seconds. So I suspect we're going to see different timelines across the season. Yeah,
absolutely. Actually, when you say True Detective, the whole John Stewart driving to Nashville in the snow felt very True Detective, certainly from the last main series or season, I should say, that I watched.
With Jodie Foster in it.
With Jodie Foster. So that was it was a nice little touch, nice little atmospheric touch about it.
And that is the one that Chris Mundy worked on and was executive producer on and directed episodes of, or wrote episodes of, sorry. So he's probably taken a little bit of inspiration from his other major HBO show as well.
Excellent stuff.
John, That's it for our chat all about Lanterns episode 1. Thanks so much to our wonderful fellow Guardians, Lanterns and Gothamites for joining us for this episode. Any final thoughts on the episode? What kind of rating would you give this opener?
Well, I really enjoyed this. I would give it 5 gilfs out of 5. I thought this was a really good opener. I
wasn't prepared for that, and I was drinking water, John.
Excellent. I absolutely love this introduction to a character I only at a very sort of broad level know about. It possibly is related to comic issues that I haven't seen or whatever, but this to me was a really fresh take on this character, and I'm coming at it from crossovers, big event series where you happen to see the Green Lanterns and the basic lore and backstory of Hal Jordan and that sort of lore on a very basic level. But for me,
we did see the Ryan Reynolds movie, of course.
Well, that's why
quite a long time ago. It wasn't that great a movie.
No, exactly. But for me, I just liked this as a non-Green Lantern fan in that sense. This introduced the character, introduced the fact that there can be more than one of them because, Abin Sur has passed it over to Hal Jordan. Here, it looks like they're passing it over to John Stewart.
Maybe.
Maybe, exactly. We don't actually know. And I just think the dialogue was sharp. It was witty. It was funny. I loved the intrigue of William Macon. I loved the small town vibe of the rednecks, the small town, everyone knows one another.
Yep.
Again, you have the gilf. You have the fact that the sheriff is married to the defense lawyer and probably knows the judge, etc. All of this stuff. So it's really, really good. And I love the pitter patter between Hal Jordan and John Stewart. I loved Kelly MacDonald here as the sheriff. So for me, 5 gilfs out of 5.
Fantastic. You gave me a weird look earlier on when I pointed out that it shouldn't be gilf, it should be GHLF, because it's a grandma he'd like to F rather than
I guess
a
so,
grandma I'd like to F.
Well, no, that's true.
But you're using the right terminology. It's
yes,
fine. Yeah.
I'm not making any judgment on whether I would or whether I think. I'm just taking it from American Pie. Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Good stuff. Really, really good opening episode. I'm really intrigued to see what happens for the rest of this season. So once again, delighted that we started covering this show. But I do think we need to go down for a drink to the Redneck Bar, John.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, fellow Lanterns, fellow quizzers, fellow Gothamites, welcome to the Redneck Rushville Bar Quiz. We are on episode 1, so of course we start off with question 1, which is, what song does Hal Jordan play multiple times to get the attention of the local pub patrons?
It's played about 5 times, isn't it? In that scene, and it's hilarious. Should we give the little clue for maybe some Europeans that might have been watching the episode, and some of the English and Irish people that may have been watching it?
Yes, I think so.
The song sounds very, very like another song from the 70s called
I've got myself a brand new combine harvester.
There you go. It's a similar tune to that. And I was laughing at it going, that's one of my least favorite songs. It was number 1 the year I was born, or the day I was born, actually. That's why I always remember it. But I was going, there's no way that Hal Jordan's playing I've got a brand new combine harvester, sung by a lady on here. So yes, that's our tip. That's our tip. You can probably pick it out. John, do you want to give the question one more time?
Absolutely. What song does Hal Jordan play multiple times to get the attention of the local pub patrons?
Fantastic. That's the first question of 8 questions for the season. Gather together all the correct answers at the end of the season. Email them into us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com at the end of the season, and you could be in with a chance of getting your hands on some Lanterns goodies. I think with that, it brings us on to our wonderful feedback from our awesome fellow Lanterns. John, we got a bit in after the first episode came out.
Absolutely. First up, on email from Coffee and Vodka. Greetings, fellow roller skating defenders. After Craig Gillespie's admission of ignoring Supergirl's source material and the resultant tanking movie, the creators of Lanterns got in front with their talk of owning long boxes of Green Lantern comics and their love of the lore. Toot sweet. And after just one episode, you can tell it wasn't just lip service. Even with the heavy HBO and True Detective Midwest grounding, they weren't shy with showing Green Lantern's powers. So far, the best of both worlds. John's stoicism and Hal's weariness and wariness felt earned rather than just scripted to fit the show. Kerry Kane, in short order, was fleshed out to a full character rather than just making her a hostile sheriff, keen to keep our lanterns out of the investigation. The backdrop social commentary framing Earth and its inhabitants as backwater avoided by the rest of the galaxy completed the setting, making for something that felt solid and real. Even the bad guys, though only with their surface scratched, were as substantial as they were mysterious. 2026 has been a great year for TV, with Lanterns so far joining the standouts Wonder Man, Invincible, and Spider Noir. Here's to hoping it continues. 5 fabricated fivers, fast flings, and frosty codgers out of 5. Peace and take care. Coffee and vodka.
Fantastic coffee and vodka. Yeah, I love your ratings once again.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, actually. I think I didn't actually know that in terms of the admission from Craig Gillespie around sort of not taking on board the source material for Supergirl. And whilst I'm not going into that, I think like if you're doing a project on the basis of huge amounts of lore, then you've at least got to do your research basically as a creative. Well, I think even if you may want to go in a completely different way, because the touch points are important. I mean, I always thought Nolan had a good sort of grasp of this on Batman, around, and where he's like saying, well, how do you know what to take and how, what you should put in? And he's like, it is important to do your own thing, but you also have to respect that you are, in a sense, standing on the shoulders of giants, because there's a huge amount of writing and creative wealth on this very character.
Yeah. And I think I suppose what's frustrating as comic book fans to when somebody says, well, I just ignored it completely, is comic book writers do this every month. They jump into a character, maybe for the first time, or for the first time after 20 years, and they have to go, well, 5 other people are writing this character. What did they do with it? And they find their path there and then come up with a new story. And sometimes it's a brand new origin story with the character, but it still has to take elements of what people have written before, because that's the character, right? Yeah. Interestingly, Supergirl's movie was supposed to be based on the Tom King story of Supergirl, a very, very well-respected DC comic book. And Tom King is one of the writers here, one of the showrunners here on Lanterns. So not only are they saying we're involved and have long boxes of Lanterns comics, they brought on board a comic book writer to be central to the team of creators on the show. So look, this is all in the world of Peter Safran and James Gunn. They thought they had something that would hit with an audience with Supergirl. I don't think they were trying to ignore the universe. I think they thought Craig Gillespie's take would be something that people would be interested in. And unfortunately, it just didn't land in the way that they hoped it would, because they're really trying to land a whole universe here. And every setback they have in this universe is causing them issues getting the next thing greenlit again, the next thing done. So I'm just hoping we're going to get great comic book movies. That's all I want, is just great comic book stories brought to life, whatever way they do them. This is another adaptation. There's no book called Lanterns, which is set in this town, telling the story the way they're telling it. And I'm just hoping it continues as well as it's started here.
I guess as well, it's the context. I mean, not many people reference Iron Man 2 much, or dare I say it, Thor 2. They made good money, but like now it's everything's compared to Endgame. Whereas before that it wasn't. And so, but also people look back fondly when really, yes, if they want a choice of going through Iron Man 1, 2, or 3, certainly for me, 1, yes, and 3, yes. 2, I'll do it if I'm doing the trilogy.
Well, yes, exactly. That was what was trying to set up the universe, wasn't it? Was the problem for 2, but it wasn't a great story on its own. And here we are at the start of a new universe, at the start of a new series, and they're setting up a great establishing story here for the world. But I'm sure there's going to be people that'll be rubbed up the wrong way by what's happening here in this episode, or what's going to happen in the story overall. But that happens with every single comic book story. Someone will pick up one book of Batman and say this is the best story ever created, and the person beside will go, it destroyed everything that I liked about the character.
Well,
exactly. The people that loved Tim Burton's Batman don't necessarily like Christopher Nolan's Batman, or the people that liked the Batman from the 60s don't like every other version after that, even though that was never.
But that's the thing. It's like I think you're right. It just, when you're starting off a creative project, certainly as ambitious as the DCU verse, then,
I'm just really surprised that anybody involved in that project would say, I ignored the source material, because you'd expect them to go, I ignored it because everybody else had my back. Maybe something like that. Yeah. I'm the creator of a movie, I need to come in and direct it, and everybody else knows the source material and was keeping me on track, would be the way you'd hope they'd say it.
Absolutely. But I think Coffee and Vodka absolutely agree with the sentiment here around this TV show, around the 2 main protagonists, around John Stewart and Hal, and how they're captured here, how the world feels, how sort of the antagonist in Kerry Kane, at least at the moment, the human antagonist, but at the same time, sort of the deeper mystery here of the alien antagonist, with the exploding Wayland. So yes, I totally agree. I think some really good TV here in this first episode.
Absolutely. Let's move on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV podcast industries. A little bit of feedback over there. First up from Steve Brown, the wonderful Steve Brown, who says, I loved it. The mystery has definitely drawn me into this world. I can't wait to see the rest of the story play out in the multiple timelines. Excellent stuff, Steve. Wendy says, as a non-comic book reader, it felt like a lot of exposition and a bit slow at times, but the acting was great, and I'm trying to have patience as it seems like they dropped us off in the middle of a story. Wendy, I agree with you. That's the opening episode is all about the middle of almost 3 stories. Really, you got the start of it, which is kind of dropping you off in Hal has been Green Lantern for a while. So we're hopefully going to see a bit of that. A bit of time when Hal and John Stewart were working together is the second story. And then the third story, being what's going on with John Stewart after the potential death of Hal Jordan.
Interesting. So do you think that the season will sort of be varying amounts of those 3 sort of main chunks of a timeline?
I think that's possible. Yeah, I think that's a great way to go. Yeah, at least.
And actually, Damon Lindelof, that it sounds about right.
Yeah, it does kind of. It's his kind of style, isn't it? There's people that have been comparing this to The Watchmen, which he served as lead writer on, or lead of the writers' room, let's say, on, and that show started off with the death of a very well-known actor, probably the best-known actor in the show, and then told it backwards as to how they got to that point. And that's what people are suspecting this show will do, is how did it get to this point in 2026. So, it'll be interesting to see how they're going to do it. But I think, you're supposed to feel a little disorientated, but hopefully at least you're liking the characters and liking the acting, because they're going to carry you through the story as the next.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the acting's been really good, and I sometimes the overarching plot, there are nuances in the characters, the character interactions that sometimes can get overlooked, where you're just looking at plot. So I think that's a really important point when you say the acting here was really good, and I think to what Coffee and Vodka also said, this notion of the weariness, coupled to the stoicism of John Stewart, is a really interesting character dynamic. I get it. Character dynamics might not always be what people are looking for in, their weekly show or whatever, but it's why The Wire was such a great show. That was its main bread and butter, done really, really well, really effectively, for a lot of people. Not everyone, but, and I think, hopefully, Wendy, the exposition helps sort of layer it in, for the next few episodes. Good stuff. Thanks, Wendy, and thanks, Steve.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, over on Discord, we got a message from Joe Herbst who says, promising start. My wife was entertained, so that was a good sign. We watched Watchmen recently. Lindelof is involved in this too. And it's interesting to see some similarities in the setting.
There you go. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, the Watchmen one was really, really good. And I mean, opened up for me such a grim part of American history that I never had heard about before, which was the firebombing of sort of the black business district and neighborhoods in Oklahoma. Yeah. It was just so brutal. And I love that this, that the Watchmen show did that, and I thought Lindelof and the writing room really, really good at what they brought. It was such a fascinating series for me.
It was brilliant,
yeah, so good,
absolutely brilliant. Again, with a property that people thought, how could you do a sequel to that? And it did such a brilliant job to do a sequel to one of the most well-known comic books of all time. Brilliant stuff. Thanks, Joe. Richard Blaze says, wow, this has all the hallmarks of being a classic. Fantastic acting, intriguing story, and just the right amount of mature grounding needed. Loved episode 1 and really can't wait to see where it now goes to tie up the 30 years covered in the show. I think I'm kind of on the same side that this is going to potentially take place over those different time periods that they've set up. Hopefully we'll see a bit of that in each of the episodes going forward. That'd be kind of a cool way to go, I think. Yeah,
great stuff. Thanks, Richard. Paolo says, it didn't capture me completely, although I appreciate a move out of the usual metropolitan superhero setting. Clearly takes a lot from the now ubiquitous neo-Western series sprouted by Yellowstone.
Oh, right.
It seems like they worked very hard in removing any comic book campiness, maybe as a contrast to Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner. Do we know if he will appear here? Let's see how this proceeds. For now, it's a 3 out of 5 tofu steaks for me.
Very good. Very good. We do know that Guy Gardner is going to appear in the show. We will be seeing Nathan Fillion at some point during the series. IMDb has him listed for 7 episodes because we knew he wasn't in the first episode, but I think that would be quite a lot to have that haircut on screen throughout the season.
Absolutely.
So I suspect we will see him in a setting where we see lots of different lanterns of different types. Or maybe he comes to help in the investigation because he's another Green Lantern, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he is, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yeah, he is.
So yes, he's another one of the Green Lanterns, so we hopefully will see him coming out in style, because we love Nathan Fillion. He'll definitely add some more comedy to the show, right?
He certainly will, but I mean, I hope it's... Yeah, I guess they just need to be careful with that.
Yeah.
To be honest, because his haircut's just...
distracting.
It's just a disaster.
It is in the comic books as well, though, yeah.
It feels like a very... James Gunn thing to do,
right?
To be honest,
yeah, picking the character of Guy Gardner out of the comic books is a very James Gunn thing to do, definitely.
And the haircut even probably is the basis of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think they need to just make sure it fits the property. Not everything needs to be. And I love James Gunn.
Of course.
But not everything needs to do a James Gunn on it.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
But we know he's going to appear, and we know he has that haircut. That's the character haircut. He can't just take it away because it's too funny with him on screen.
Well, maybe you can wear a
just gonna wear a hat.
Wear a cowboy hat.
Just wear a cowboy hat. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Exactly.
Great stuff.
Or if they made him look like, No Country for Old Men, that would be really good.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Dye it black and have him walking around like Sugar with the
gas gun.
The air-powered rifle. There you go.
Exactly.
Great stuff. Thanks, Paolo.
Thanks, Paolo.
Ken Log says, True Detective DC style. Really intrigued by the first episode. Have never read a Green Lantern comic, so I'm curious how different Hal Jordan's character is from his comic counterpart. Seems like this could be a fascinating mystery series that could set things up in the wider DC universe. Very good, Ken Log. I'll have to leave it to some of our other fellow DC fans. I know Richard Blaze is a big DC fan as well, so maybe he can give us a bit of a contrast as to how Hal Jordan is in the comics. But I know there's been plenty of takes of the character over the years, been around for many, many years, longer than I have even. So I know there's been many, many different takes. But yes, this version of Hal Jordan, I suspect, is a bit different than what you pick up in a Green Lantern comic on average version of Hal Jordan anyway.
Yes.
I suspect, because, he needs to be the hero, and here he's not looking like the hero that most people would follow, except when he's posing for photographs and selfies with everybody around him. There was something I meant to mention just when Wendy said about the show being a little slow and exposition heavy. That moment when Zoe Macon meets with John Stewart in the bar and she's asking questions, there was a point where I was going, is she an alien? Because the questions that she was asking and the fact that he was delivering all of this dialogue and exposition, I was going, there's nobody else that would ask these questions. I know it's a boring local town with not much going on. These are the new guys in town. But nobody would ask all of those questions and get all of those answers. So I was thinking she was going to be a much bigger character, that she was an alien, and they would have a fight with her later on in the episode or something. And then it turns out, no, John's just going to sleep with her, and it's going to be someone from the most powerful family in town. And that's probably is going to cause problems for them in the future. But I was going, this is going to turn out she's an alien, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, Ken, for your feedback. We have one last piece of feedback in, which just came in while we were recording the podcast. It came in from Philippe.
Yes, Philippe says, really enjoyed this episode. Very promising start. John Stewart has been my favourite Green Lantern ever since the Justice League animated series, so it's great to finally see him in live action. Also, I'm a huge Damon Lindelof fan, going all the way back to Lost, the very first series I followed from start to finish.
Fantastic.
Excellent stuff, Philippe.
Yeah.
Really glad you could get your thoughts in on this first episode of Lanterns.
Absolutely. There you go. We'll ask you, Philippe, how different is Hal Jordan in the comic books to this version of Hal Jordan we see on TV? It'd be kind of cool to hear your thoughts on that and what you think there. Great. I'm right there with you as well about Lost. I remember following along every single episode of that show as it was coming out, to the point where the finale was airing in the US at, I think it was 3 a.m. our time, and I got up at 3 a.m. our time to sit on the couch and watch the finale and bawled my eyes out at the finale and how it all wrapped up, because I thought it was absolutely wonderful, and then had to go to work about 3 hours later. So after having a very emotional experience overnight, I probably should have taken the day off that following day, shouldn't I?
Absolutely. I think you should have done.
Absolutely. If you want to get your feedback into us, thanks to everybody who did for this episode. Just email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or, as I said, go over to our Facebook group or Discord and join us over there, where we put up spoiler posts every week for the shows and movies that we cover.
Yes, of course, as well, fellow Lanterns. If you want to support the podcast, you can head on over to Patreon. Just search TV Podcast Industries, or buymeacoffee.com, where you just search for TVPI, and you can donate any support to help with the running of the podcast. But more importantly, please share the podcast with your friends, family, and whoever else you want to, and subscribe, because sharing the podcast is, of course, sharing the love.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And as well, feedback is great support for the podcast. So keep those great thoughts, theories, and observations coming in as well.
Absolutely. We'll be back next week for Lanterns episode 2. We don't know the name just yet for the episode. They're keeping that under wraps, like most of the mystery for the season. But hopefully one mystery is we will have our third host coming to join us for the next podcast. Chris is hopefully going to be joining us every Tuesday for our recordings of Lanterns from next week. He couldn't join us for the first one. And I don't want to be caught on this again. So if he doesn't turn up next week, he'll just be turning up as a surprise from next week onwards, right? At some point. Exactly. But he says he'll be here for his first DC show on TV Podcast Industries.
Well, that's true. He's not a normal DC person. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, he's never made it for any of his DC shows. No. He does read lots and lots of comics, though. So.
He does, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yes, thank you so much, fellow Lanterns, for joining us. As always, until we come back for episode 2, keep watching, keep listening, and of course, keep shining a light.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.